Dios mío, la rata.
And welcome into Sports Talk with Krish. I'm your host, Krish Verma, and today I'm alongside Carolina Panthers legend, running back Jonathan Stewart, all-time leading rusher in Panthers history. Jonathan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Nice to see you again.
And as he says again, Mr. Stewart and I initially met at a company event in Myrtle Beach for Autobelt Car Wash. I was more than grateful to have the opportunity to speak with him on stage, and very excited to talk to you today, sir.
Let's do it, man. Excited too.
And once again, if you're tuning in for the first time, make sure you hit the subscribe button, as Sports Talk with Krish is on the road to 2,000 subscribers. If you want to check me out on Instagram or TikTok, I'm at Sports Talk with Krish, and my Twitter/X is KrishFermo_3. So let's get this thing rolling. We are here today with obviously Jonathan Stewart and Jay Stu. We talked about it a little bit in Myrtle Beach, and I want to kind of go back to it again. So you were always a grinder from what it sounded like. From day one, nothing was necessarily given to you. You had to work your college career to the NFL, and now even post-retirement, getting the opportunities that you've had. So let's circle back to day one. Where did you find your love and passion for the game of football?
I always loved being, aggressive, right? Growing up, being a boy, back in the day. I'm not sure if you are into wrestling by any chance, but if you are, you would understand that a child like me growing up, that's all we did was wrestle. So WWF, WCW, Hulk Hogan, Sting, the Ultimate Warrior, Booker T, the whole nine. I grew up with this need to just want to wrestle my brother and just be physical. My parents got divorced, and it was at that time where, my mom's boyfriend at the time, who was became my father figure, James Parker. He was a custodian, and so I would page him. Yeah, this is back in the day when they had pagers. You know what a pager is? A beeper.
Yeah.
Okay. And so back in the day, I would page him, and every time I page him, he'd always call back, and it'd be as simple as, "Hey, can you come over and throw the football with me?" Right. And he introduced me to the game of football simply out of love, man. Just someone showing up, during a time where a young kid is, needing some type of outlet, some type of guidance. James Parker was that for me. And I got really good at, understanding how to catch the football. We used to run route trees in the back of our apartments. And obviously because of him, I started watching football on Sundays and Saturdays. He got me into, following the likes thereof, Florida State, legend Peter Warwick, a guy that played every position just about. He was basically the first Travis Hunter, in my opinion. And not the first by any means, but obviously one of the ones that stand out. And yeah, so I wore number 9 in middle school because of him. And yeah, man, just, I would say, to tighten that up, I fell in love with the game because, I found the game through love.
Well, I guess that's the right way to say it, right? You found the game through the
Mm-hmm.
love. I can tell
Mm-hmm.
you played with a lot of love and passion on the football field. So, awesome
Yeah.
story to hear from you, sir. And
Yep.
looking at your background right now, I know we talked about it right before we started, but you've got the green going in the back. I see green everywhere. Honestly, a little bit of Ducks everywhere. I know you're running some of the Oregon Ducks podcasts as well. So, I mean, man, number one team in the country: Dylan Gabriel, Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart, Jordan James. I mean, offense is explosive, and they got a big game this Saturday, the Big Ten championship against Penn State. So how far do you see your Ducks going in this new format of the college football playoff?
I see them going all the way. I love that. I love actually how, the nation, the media somehow likes to make it to where the Ducks don't really stand a chance, even though they're number one in the nation. The only team that's undefeated, behind Dylan Gabriel and a strong running game, but more importantly, a defense that is very stingy when it comes to giving up points. And so you add those things, that combination together, we finally have arrived in my mind. I don't know if you know the history of Oregon, but we've made cases here and there throughout our years, but we've come up short because of the physicality. Getting in the trenches and winning in the trenches is so important at the next level, at a high school, into college, and especially when you get to the big leagues, right? The trenches is where everything is won. And you can get away with beating teams 40-0 when they're inferior, but when you're playing a team that is mano a mano, basically the same across the board, it's the trenches that makes the difference. You can have all the playmakers in the world, but if you're not blocking who you're supposed to block and getting the ball off on time and finding that anticipation for your quarterback to the receivers, you're not making explosive plays. And then on the flip side, on defense, if you're not getting after the quarterback whenever you need to, he's going to pick you apart. And then obviously the interior defensive line for us, earlier on this year, we had some struggles with Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty turns out to be a Heisman case. You know what I'm saying? So, I think earlier in the year when we were battling, these teams, and we were like, man, what's going on with our team? What's going on with our defense? Well, we're playing some pretty good teams, and it just so happens that we're playing, some really good, caliber football players, and that was a test for the University of Oregon early on that paid off. And I say the reason why I say it's paid off is because we've been tested throughout the whole entire year, and our bye week actually fell on perfect times, right? We had 2 bye weeks. Had one earlier in the year to kind of recalibrate, recheck. Hey, look, we're better than these teams that we're struggling against, so let's reel it in and let's recalibrate. And then you see us kind of taking these strides. You see Dylan Gabriel finding his mojo. He struggled a little bit in the red zone throughout the year, and he figured out his pace there. Our running game, being heavily dependent on that in certain games was huge for us. I mean, you look at the Wisconsin game, we needed the running game to get out of there alive, and luckily we had it. A balanced team, a balanced offense in general, is a team that can do whatever they want when they need to, and we've been able to do that throughout this year for the most part. And there's no question that, this weekend, Penn State, the Big Ten championship, first year, University of Oregon gets to be in the Big Ten, right? And we're automatically placed in the Big Ten championship. It's a huge moment, a huge moment. And I honestly feel like people have the Oregon Ducks messed up, because I think they're actually really good and they're starting to peak at the right time.
And when you talk about peak at the right time, nothing better than when you're playing December football. Obviously, this is Oregon not only moving to a new conference, but they also have to adjust to a new playoff picture overall. This is 12 teams. This isn't the usual 4 teams. You've got bye weeks in it. You've got, Boise State, who wouldn't ever make the playoffs if it weren't for a 12-team playoff. When you talked about Ashton Jeanty earlier in the season, when you guys had to face up against him. So, yes, certainly a lot of changes the Ducks had to take this season, and to find themselves undefeated, number 1 team in the country, and an opportunity to win a conference they've only been in for 1 year is certainly huge. Certainly.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
So if you go off that, I think you made the right choice for where you ended up at college, right? Play college ball with the Ducks as well. Number 1 team in the country now, and you only made them better. So
Yeah.
Why did you choose the University of Oregon?
Um, that's a story too.
Yeah.
But I'll try to keep it short. But Interstate 5. I'm a believer in Christ, and I go um to prayer with everything. And my senior year in high school, I was being heavily recruited by everyone. It was a little bit overwhelming. And luckily, my method was prayer. And me and my mom, just about every night when we say our prayers, that was part of our prayer. Where am I going to college? And please give us a sign. And so riding down Interstate 5 from Oregon back to Washington after my initial visit, um, we are passing, this large field with a hill on it, and there's a cross on this hill, and I didn't realize it until I looked in the mirror because there's a flash of light beaming into my mirror, right? And I looked at my mirror, my rearview mirror, as I was driving on the interstate with my mom in the car while she's praying, and I look in the rearview, and there's this cross. I'm like, oh, well, there it is. I'm going to Oregon. But what that moment reminded me of the time that me and my dad drove from Washington, down Interstate 5 down to Las Vegas when I was in the 7th grade. Or the 6th grade. And me and my dad were driving down that same freeway, that same interstate in the middle of the night, and that same cross, like I remembered it in that moment. Oh, wow. I've seen this before. I've seen this all play out. And so it was kind of like a full circle moment for me. And yeah, man, I think God doesn't, make mistakes. He's intentional. And I was intentional with my prayers. And that was my moment where I realized God was talking to me. So, the cross on the hill on Interstate 5 going to Eugene, Oregon, about 10 minutes away from Eugene. If you're ever driving down that road, make sure you peek and look to the left on the hill. There's a cross there. Right now, there is some bushes and some taller trees now kind of covering it because it's been some time now, right? Trees grow. And so, yeah, I really super fortunate to have made a decision of a lifetime and make the right one.
And it turned out to be the right one because it was in God's hands. I love the way you said that, sir. I
Mm-hmm.
truly did, because God is, like you said, very intentional with his ways for everyone. And
Mm-hmm.
as long as you believe and pray and move forward with whatever he has to say, because it will lead you in the right direction. So
Yep.
I
Stay
love that you
steady.
mentioned that. Right. Yes, sir. So hearing wisdom in the words from God and finding his signs that led you to the University of Oregon, kind of keeping on a similar path of listening to when you hear maybe locker room speeches, right? Because you played football for a while, and
Mm-hmm.
even today you're on podcasts, so you hear a lot of things as well. So, do you have any specific quotes or talks after games or with your teammates that you had in your career that you'd like to share?
There's so many. Um, Man, there's so many. Thomas Davis, my teammate and good friend, um, he would lead us in prayer before every game, and it was a moment of conviction. You know, because the way he delivered this prayer and this speech, it was it rattled the locker room. It almost felt like the vibrations of his voice carried throughout the stadium. And he would basically, yell out scripture, which was Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. and he would yell that, and we would yell it back at him. And then he would say, if God is for us, who can be against us? Right? And now we know that God doesn't pick sides when we play sports.
Right.
But this is a personal thing, right? This is a personal measure of faith. It's a personal measure of unity. Like how connected do you want to be? And I feel like the best teams are the teams that are connected, not just through X's, not just through X's and O's, right? But connected to the individual that is standing next to you, and you knowing what they're going through personally, knowing who their family members are, knowing why they're playing, right? When you get to the next level, you know, there's guys that are making millions of dollars, and there's guys that aren't making much. You know, they're just, you know, scraping the surface, right? And once you get to that level of, you know, unity and being able to be present in the moment and to really believe in faith through God, that you're going to go out there and give your all, and you'll be able to walk away knowing that you did so for your brothers. That's a powerful moment. And that's a moment that a lot of people don't get to experience, being in the locker room like that.
Right.
And I got to be a part of that locker room with him for 10 years. And it was the same exact way whenever he was in that locker room. And so when you ask about speeches, there's a lot of speeches. But I think that moment of prayer, where it's just all the players, where we're in unison, different backgrounds, different walks of life, different beliefs. But in that circle, we were holding hands, gripping tight, and yelling something in unison. That's a special thing when you have men doing that.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Thomas Davis was electric to watch on the football field, but it seemed that he was all for everything off the football field too. And I love to hear that. I know you guys are very close. I see you guys a lot, especially the Panthers' recent trip to Germany. I saw you guys maybe went to a soccer match as well.
Yeah, man. You know, Germany was a really, really fun trip, especially being with those guys. That was the best part, was being with my old teammates, Julius Peppers, Luke Kuechly, Steve Smith, Thomas Davis, John Beeson, you know, Jeremy Kelly, who's the head of our Legends department here in the Carolinas, does a good job of, you know, making sure that the connective, you know, tissue is still involved in the organization. You know, having the legends around makes that place really special.
Right. No, of course, it really does. And it's great to, I've fortunately gotten to attend the last two Carolina Panthers games at home. It makes it great to see, especially, I was actually the game where you came out too to do the Keep Pounding Drum week 2 against the Chargers, and to see the legends come out the fourth quarter and kind of get things going. It's that glimpse of history coming together in unity for a game that day. It's really nice to see, and I'm happy that you guys have the opportunity to do that for us fans.
Yeah, man, it's awesome for us because we get a moment of closure, right? Some guys, you know, retire and it's just done, and they're never really welcomed back to the organization. And the Carolina Panthers does a great job of just making sure that the door is always open. And it's also just really fun. It's like a reunion, you know, anytime you go to the game, right? And the fans being able to see the reunion happen in front of their eyes is probably another thing too, right? You know, guys hugging each other like we're just like best friends, because we really are, you know. And when you go through blood, sweat, and tears with another guy on that battlefield, you know, it's a different type of bond, a bond that, you know, a lot of people wish they had. And I think that's really, you know, when you look at sports, that's what's so special. It's not, you know, the glory, the TV time. It's the connective, you know, tissue that's happening when you're actually out there, and the bond that will never be broken.
and it's certainly a beautiful bond. We love it here in the Carolinas. So I wanted to mention something as someone who truly looks up to you on and off the field. Is there any type of, and obviously now you have the opportunity to do podcasts and you do some things with the Carolina Panthers organization. What type of advice would you have on this career path? Obviously, not necessarily the football field for someone like me, but for after that, the opportunity to be in the booth and call Panthers games, talk about the Panthers, even talk about Oregon, those opportunities to talk sports.
Yeah, man, take advantage of every opportunity to talk. It's practice. I'm still practicing every day, and I think how I relate that to football is till the day I retired, and from the very first time I picked up a football, every week, every day, I practiced to get better.
Right.
And so that should never change, no matter what career path you choose, no matter what activity you're into, no matter what hobby you're into. If you want to be good at it, you can just practice sometimes. But if you want to be great at it and play amongst the elite, you got to practice every day. And in this space where it's broadcasting, podcasting, whatever it is, you just got to find opportunities to get your reps. And, for me, I have 4 podcasts that I do. And I do radio pregame on Sundays with Jim Zoki for the Carolina Panthers. Have some opportunities to do postgame radio with Jim Zoki. And those are reps. And they're meaningful reps, right? Because they're game reps, and I don't take that lightly. And so my preparation for those things are heavy. I want to know, the Carolina Panthers in and out, and that's made me a real true fan of the Carolina Panthers. So I've never been really a fan of anything in my life, to be honest. Besides, player fans, right? I used to follow players, certain guys. But as far as a whole roster, that takes a lot of due diligence. It takes a lot of work and time, and you got to put in, the time for preparation. So that way, when you're, watching a game, things just roll off your lips. So,
of course, yeah, and I wanted to mention something here. So I have attended several sports broadcasting camps around the country, including cities such as Atlanta, Philadelphia, and Chicago. So would possibly, do the Panthers have any type of junior play-by-play opportunities, or is that something I could even have a possibility to do?
That is a good question. I'd have to ask Jim Zoki or David Langton, the guys that actually run the show. But that would absolutely be a cool opportunity that they should be creating. So maybe that can be something that you pioneer if it doesn't exist.
And I would obviously be more than grateful to any chance that can happen in the future. I would certainly be on it.
You would kill it, man.
Yeah, I've talked about it day one here.
You listen to Anish on radio?
Yeah, Anish Shroff. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Have you ever met him?
I've not gotten the chance to meet him, no, sir.
All right, Anish, if you're listening to this and watching this, I'll tag you in this. And Krish here needs your assistance. He wants to be a broadcaster, just like you. So let's make it happen.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Anish is someone I love to listen to whenever you need to hear the Panthers game. You can't watch the game at home. I always turn on Anish Shroff, hear what's going on. I love his insight for the game. And as also a big East Carolina football fan, he called the game actually recently, our final home game. So to see him do that at ESPN and then also come over on Sunday to the Panthers game, it's a true treat to watch as someone I truly look up to. So I do appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, it's amazing watching him in the booth and just how on he is and just like catching every single thing, right? Oh, did you see that? No, I did not see that. But he's on it.
It's truly not the easiest to figure out what's going on in the field, especially from that distance. But
yeah,
they make it look really easy. Even like you as a running back as well. It's like, oh, it looks so easy. Get the block, go down the sideline, and score. But it's like that
Yeah.
takes weeks and weeks just to have that
But
one play.
Krish, guess what, man? You're
Yeah,
starting at such a young age. How old are you?
I'm 14.
You're 14 years old. If you stay on this path and you are diligent, how many shows do you do?
I try to do maybe a couple podcasts a month, and I call every Panthers game on Sunday.
Okay. And you do that virtually?
Yeah, yes, sir.
You keep doing that, you throw some more games in there as you get older and you have more time or whatever it is, you're going to be well past everyone. And I'm calling it now. One day you'll be calling Panther games because you should be. You'll have a resume going all the way back to now. That's
Right.
amazing. Not a lot of people find a career where they can say, hey, look, I started doing this when I was how old? 10?
14. Yeah.
14? So you just started.
Well, this channel specifically actually started when I was 12. I started going to camps when I was 10. I did 2 years virtual due to COVID, and then I did Atlanta, Philadelphia, Chicago. I started this after my first Atlanta camp. I got really inspired hearing all these older kids are doing a podcast. I'm like, man, I want to give that a shot. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm a big Panthers fan. If I can just move some stuff around in here, give it a chance, I'm gonna go for it. Yeah, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, no doubt, man. You're well ahead of the game. Just letting you know that. So that's the confidence that you should have and carry on your chest.
Of course, I appreciate that. And only a couple more things I wanted to ask you here, real quick. Like you talking about being in the booth right now for the Panthers, watching this specific team, today's team, develop. Obviously, record-wise, everyone says record says what you are, and it does sometimes. And I think yes, it can certainly say that right now. But at least for the last 2 weeks, maybe even once Bryce Young became starting quarterback again after his benching, obviously Andy Dalton went back after an injury. What have you seen from this Carolina Panthers team? Is there any advice you want to give to this team, and maybe a word you want to say for our quarterback Bryce Young?
I mean, what I've seen for the last 4 weeks, really since the Denver game, I've seen a quarterback, come into his own. Something that we've anticipated and have been, waiting on. And I think we need to give him more credit for what he's been through.
Right.
He came to an organization that was muddy, and he jumped right into the mud, and it takes a little bit of time to get clean when you get muddy. And then, so for him personally, it says a lot about his mindset, his mental stability, where he is spiritually. He's physically gifted, he's capable of making plays. We've seen it happen in Alabama.
Right.
But I'm a true believer that the mental, the spiritual, and the physical have to be in full form for you to give your absolute best.
Right.
And he's now in that place where he can do so. And part of that is due to, the additions of key pieces like Xavier Legette, Adam Thielen. We have Jalen Coker, who came into fruition, a guy that undrafted. Dan Morgan's done a great job of, solidifying some pieces around Bryce and guys that just love football. There's a difference between guys that want to play football and that are really good and the guys that care. The last game that they played, you see Chuba Hubbard on the sideline with his head down.
Right.
And, he had the fumble that led to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going down and scoring and whatnot. And I've been there, right? I've been there where I fumbled the ball multiple times in a game and hoping my defense bails me out. And sometimes they did and sometimes they didn't, right? And when they do, you can kind of go and say, thank you, defense. But when you leave them in a pickle, it's kind of, that feeling that you let your team down. But we know Chuba has done everything and beyond as far as like getting this team to where they are now. He is absolutely a cornerstone, a staple for what this Carolina Panthers team is supposed to be like. And so when you have something like that happen and you see a guy on the bench and you see some players coming and rally around him, that is what you call growth.
All right.
In that moment in time, last week losing to the Buccaneers, I honestly and truly believe this is the moment where the Carolina Panthers get back to business. And the moment that, the moment that happens, things start to slow down. Practice starts to slow down. Everything starts to make a little bit more sense. You start playing with a little bit extra chip on your shoulder because you know what the guy next to you is going through. You know the preparation that the guy is putting in throughout the week. You've been seeing it day in and day out, week in and week out for years. And you stack that. And when you know a guy is preparing the way that he ought to be preparing, and you see that over and over again, when you show up on game day, and I'm speaking about Bryce right now, you show up on game day, that's when you can just throw the ball and anticipate where a guy is going to be, and you find that connection. The roll he rolled out to the right. I think it was third and long, not really sure. Third down, he rolled out to the right, and Tommy Tremble just takes off running. That's called chemistry, right? That's practiced. And that's done. They do that in practice, right? Okay, it looks like he's gonna need me, so let me go get open.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, so the chemistry is starting to form, and yeah, they put on a great show, and the outcome is not what they wanted. But what the Carolina Panther fans should be excited about is that you're seeing and you're experiencing true growth.
And I can certainly say that as a fan perspective, these last 2 weeks, I know back-to-back heartbreaking losses for Carolina, but you look at it, especially from a perspective, take a step back, look at the start of the season, because the start of the season was kind of what we saw last year. It was just a complete disaster. And 2 games in, we're already like, yeah, we gotta switch something up. So we immediately bench our starting quarterback. And then the whole world is like, oh my goodness, what is Carolina doing? Right? This, that, blah, blah, blah. Media puts it out there. Then we kind of find a little bit of a rhythm with the switch. And then it goes back to what it was, like down rock bottom. And when Bryce came back, and the Broncos game, I've called the Broncos and the Giants, Broncos and Giants games on here. The Broncos game felt like, okay, we weren't really in that game, but it felt like he played a little better. Then you go to next week, it's like, man, we won the game. He got to take a knee, and we played a little better. Giants game played a little better. Chiefs game, we were right there on Patrick Mahomes in the last minute. And then if you literally 30 seconds left on the clock, and that's clutch. That's what we traded up for Bryce Young for those opportunities when it's 30 seconds in the game and you're trailing by 4 for him to go make that play.
Yep, go win the game for us, big dog. That's exactly what he did.
He put us in a position for that, and our defense did fortunately get the stop in overtime, and then obviously the fumble. But the way I looked at it, honestly, is if our most explosive player on offense, our leader of the team, goes down and makes a mistake, then it's like we're destined for that to be a loss. In my head, I look at it that way. But it felt like, again, it felt like a win. Like back-to-back weeks, it's felt like a win. It feels like we're getting better and better. And it's almost like you want to keep playing games to keep this chemistry for next season. And I know you'd probably be really excited about this too, but I feel like we're starting to finally turn the page. And I could feel the energy in that stadium too, especially after that Thielen touchdown.
Yeah, the energy level there is something that I don't think a lot of fans have felt in a very long time, probably in the last 7-6 years or so. Who knows? But the energy's there. You know, expecting to go into a football game and win, it's there. Expecting to win, right? Not expecting to make it a game, but expecting to win. And That's a fun feeling for the fans, obviously for the players. Your preparation throughout the week now is a little bit more meaningful because you have confidence in what's going on. You have confidence in yourself and the schemes that you're drawing up, coaching, everything. And this week we have the Philadelphia Eagles. It's a tall task, right? I think the Philadelphia Eagles are playing at a high level. You have Saquon Barkley, who's basically playing like a modern day Barry Sanders, in my opinion. And that's going to be a guy that you're going to have to watch out for. But then you have a guy named AJ Brown. So, offensively, Jalen Hurts has a lot of weapons, and he has an offensive line that is an absolute unit.
Right.
And so you as a defense you have to figure out a way to penetrate that backfield. The best way to stop an engine from going is to make sure you take the keys. Right. And so you got to get in the backfield early and often. And then on passing downs, you just got to make sure you disturb Jalen Hurts.
And that's mighty task. We already talked about Kansas City being our Super Bowl. I think we got another one right here next week.
Yeah.
And biggest thing about it is we don't get to host it this time. We actually have to go play at Philly, who might be the hottest team in the NFL right now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They are definitely playing at a high level, and we'll see whether or not they peaked, right? Because you don't want to peak at the wrong time of the season. And I think the way that the Carolina Panthers played against the Chiefs, if they can do something like that on defense, get after the quarterback and make sure you're just stout in the run game, he's gonna get some big plays here and there. That's to be expected, right? He's, in my opinion, the best football player in the NFL right now. Saquon Barkley. You have Lamar Jackson, but Lamar's been doing this for some time now, and teams go into a game with some type of game plan that kind of works now, seems like, right? But to be able to stop Saquon, haven't seen it yet. So maybe we can be the guys that do that. Evero, our defensive coordinator, we'll see what kind of packages he, strings along here, trying to see what he can do to stop Saquon and make a message be sent to the defense, to make them play out of their minds.
Yeah, and much respect for our DC for at least these last 2 weeks as well, because we've obviously been banged up. Derek Brown injured week 1, gone for the season. Shaq Thompson out for the season. So, all those injuries, and then to see the rookies, especially on the offensive side. I know you mentioned Jalen Coker, even Jonathan Brooks coming back from injury, Leggett, Jatavian Sanders, who unfortunately hurt right now, is hopefully going to come back soon, had a scary injury against Kansas City. And then on defense, you saw Charles Smith-Wade had his first breakout, an interception off Baker on Sunday. So it's great to see this draft class that Dan Morgan put together go into full effect and kind of just blossom like a flower. It's finally a draft class that's making a difference on both sides of the ball and benefiting not just the games and being a win or a loss, but the spirit of that locker room. Again, I feel like and Dan, I know you probably saw him. He mentioned this in his press conference too, when he was first moved up the general manager. We want some dogs on this team. And I think certainly free agency and the draft, and I think this will continue to be a similar path. Dan Morgan's going to get his dogs whenever he can to improve this team.
Man, I think you said that perfectly. I think you're a dog yourself, so you might be able to scout some dogs.
Appreciate that. Yes, sir. And we all know Jay Stu is a dog. So one more last thing I wanted to hit you with. Jay Stu, known as a dog as well, but he's also known a hard runner, an amazing person on the mic. That's what we know you as. What do you want the people to know who Jonathan Stewart is?
Well, I always say that, when I played football, now that I'm in, the retired life, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, but mainly I'm a child of God, right? And I just so happen to have played in the NFL. I just so happen to be a collegiate athlete. And I've been blessed to be a father and a husband. And I'm blessed to have a lot of friendships that I care about. And the main thing is that I'm a child of God.
And beautifully said once again.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. Jonathan Stewart, right here on Sports Talk with Krish. Once again, if you want to check me out or Instagram or TikTok, I'm at Sports Talk with Krish. If you want to check me out, Twitter/X is Krish_Sherma_3. Thank you all for tuning in to season 5, episode 1 with Jonathan Stewart. We'll see y'all in the next one, and keep pounding.